So, so here we go. So as most of you know, there's a wonderful history to our building here at Kehilat HaNahar. And the building really dates back to the 1700s. The land dates back to the 1700s, the building to the 1800s, and then it became a shul, obviously, in the 1990s. So kind of three or four parts to today's presentation. And what we're going to do is take you. So we're going to talk about the property in the early days. So Tom, do you want me to start there? Or, yeah, yeah. So just so everybody's aware, the American Revolution took place right here in New Hope, and several of the generals that worked directly under George Washington were based here in New Hope. There was an encampment city, and they marched on the Washington's Crossing, Battle of Trenton. Later on, they marched to Battle of Monmouth. And the encampment actually was very close to here. It was actually very close to where Abraham and Carl lived, right near the high school is where the encampment was. And these grounds were very close to it, right next to it. And being one of the highest points in New Hope, it's believed that this was used kind of like as a lookout. The British were on the other side of the river, and the troops were over here. So we believe that this is where Washington troops helped defend the town of New Hope from British troops.
So I think that's what we call the bunker.
Bunker.
Or some kind of encampment.
Right.
And I just want to say that a patriot owned the grounds. It was the Coryell. And if anyone has heard about recent history about the Coryell family, of course, Coryell's Ferry, they own land in Lambertville and New Hope because the ferry had to land somewhere. Rachel Finkel is doing a deep dive into her family history, and she's writing a book. Coryells own that land, and they also own 1,500 acres. That was in Lambertville, and they own land here, including this land. And because they were patriots, they allowed Washington and his troops to encamp and to bunker here. Recent history is that Coryell name is spelled about 11 different ways, and their DNA takes them back to Spain as Sephardic Jews. Wow. And the names are Jonathan, Abraham. You're going to get a hint of some of these names. And we found out that Dr. Tom Lyons from Philadelphia, 7 generations in Philadelphia, is 2% Sephardic Jewish. And we're claiming Coryell as that 2%.
Coryell, through Coryell. And I did not know this about my ancestry until Carl told me about the connection to Spain.
Okay, so Tom, why don't you tell us who owned the original properties in the early 1800s and what were some of the title transfers that actually happened?
Right. So Benjamin Perry owned this land. He of the Perry Mansion and the New Hope Historical Society building right there on Main Street, the main mansion in town. And he went through several property transfers until Benjamin's grandson, yes, it might be his great-grandson, his grandson, I believe, Louis Slate Coryell, obtained title to this property. And there's an 1865 map of Louis Slate Coryell's holdings. It's in the archives of the Historical Society. And basically, there was the little bit of downtown New Hope. He didn't own all that. He had some there. And then basically everything around town was his, including this property.
And by the way, I just want to point something out. Part of the inspiration for why we're here today is we had reached out to Tom maybe about 4 or 5 months ago he runs the archives inside of the Perry Mansion and has all the historic archives of New Hope. And we said, is there anything about the old schoolhouse, Kehilat HaNahar? And he said, let me look and I'll get back to you in a couple of days. He goes, we have quite a lot of information about this building. So we said, let's do a class. And that's why we're here today. And Tom really discovered all that information, photos, articles, deeds, all sorts of things.
And I'll make one little pitch here, which is that probably in the next few weeks, there's a series of articles published on the New Hope Historical Society website about historic buildings and their current occupants, the history of the buildings, the people in the buildings over the years. There's going to be an article about this particular as well, the building we're in today and the people associated with it. It isn't published yet on the website, but it is in final form and waiting for publication.
Right. And it's Beyond the Door. It's a wonderful article. Yeah.
Tom, what get the website?
It's newhopehistorical.org.
Right. Yeah, we'll let you know. We'll put it in.
Yeah, and the subtitle, when you get to newhopehistorical.org, it's under Learning and Archives, Beyond the Door. The series is called Beyond the Door.
Maybe, Jerry, maybe we can put it in the e-bulletin when it's published, actually. It should be soon. So, Tom, tell us about the history of the schoolhouse. Like, when was it built and who attended and how long did it serve as a schoolhouse?
So in about 1948, Louis Slate Coryell, the grandson of Emmanuel Coryell of the Coryell's Ferry, went bankrupt. It was eventually, the property was eventually sold to the New Hope School District in 1850. And interestingly, Louis Slate Coryell was at that point also a school board member. So his name is on the deed again 2 years later as a 1850. And that's probably about when this building was built. There is a document in the New Hope Historical Society archives that state it was built about 1830, but I think that's probably incorrect. It was probably built around 1850. We can't say for sure, but probably. I'm sorry. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. And it served, as a schoolhouse until the 1900s, right?
Right. And so for about 90 years, it was the main schoolhouse in town. Eventually, it became crowded. It had both elementary grades and upper grades as well. And just outside this wall behind us here, there was a series of temporary classrooms.
I think they were on the other side.
No, here.
No? Oh, back there. Okay.
Temporary classrooms. That's where the upper grades, the senior grades were. And then the elementary school was in here. In 1931, the school on Bridge Street was built. And at first, the senior students went over, and the elementary schools remained here for another 7 or 8 years until 1938, and then they moved over there as well.
And we have a few photographs that have been dug up from the archives of the Historical Society and other sources. Carl and Abraham had a lot also. So what you're looking at right now are a couple of postcards that are out there. And I think what's interesting, like the one on the left especially, looks like a schoolhouse. It doesn't look like KHN. And that's because we're used to coming around the back. But the front that looks like a schoolhouse faced out over the valley of New Hope, actually. And hardly any trees, so those trees were all new, so you could see it from down in town. You could look up and see it on the top of the hill. Anybody want to add anything before I go to the next one? This one's really interesting. So these are children on the left-hand side in this room attending school, but the room is backwards. So the school faced that way. So if you look to the children's left-hand side are these garage doors. You can kind of see them, right? Okay. And then on the right is our building. And so the windows that are behind me right now were in the back of the schoolhouse. Schoolhouse faced that way.
So I want to ask the question, why would we reorient this Jewish sanctuary the way it is?
That way.
East faces Jerusalem, correct?
I cheated and I put it on the slide.
Oh.
But you knew when
Credit anyway.
you knew. Okay. Okay. And this is, Tom, this is what you were talking about, the mobile classrooms.
So they were like barracks. So you can imagine if you've ever been downstairs, we have just so many classrooms. Then upstairs, and so this was K to 12. We met people who said they walked along a path from basically where the Wawa is along this hill to here. Others came up the hill, and Mayor McGill at the time talked about the first time he remembered having an indoor flush here. Because otherwise, the two outhouses, there's still the foundation to my right. That's where they went to the bathroom. They talked about taking their book bag off their shoulders and sliding down the hill in snow to the street, and then they would continue on. That's where the hard hats came in. We had with
Oh, we're
with
gonna
Judy's
get to
dad-
that. We're gonna
Okay.
get to that in a second.
You can also see that the idea of pods is not new. We have some boulders of population. Some of our schools have these little trailers. Well, this is the same thing many years earlier.
Okay.
And there's a member of the Historical Society, a volunteer in the archives, David Newhart, whose family has lived here for over 100 years on Ferry Street. And his father remembered being in this building and the Joseph Pickett painting being on the wall.
He was a neighbor of ours.
The original Joseph Pickett painting, right?
Yes.
Yes, the paint, right.
Right, that's what we have in the lot.
Which we're gonna get to that later. We're gonna talk about the painting too. Here's a couple of other photographs from different angles at different periods of time. I don't know if we have any context with this, but
You can see in one part, the front entry was enclosed. I think that in the picture on the left,
yeah.
the image on the left. So they made that a classroom or a cloakroom, we're not sure what.
That
If you
face,
notice, the roof is metal there, so it was cedar when
We got it.
we got it, and now it's asphalt shape. There you go.
Mhm.
It's changed a lot.
Okay. Okay, yeah, so what we're gonna do now is just talk, there were some really interesting characters who owned this building and ran different businesses out of this building between the time that it ceased being a schoolhouse until the time that KHN took over. So we're gonna talk about some of those characters. So Tom, why don't you tell us about Valentin Dior-Gris?
Right.
Okay.
So he was a stained glass artist. He was here in the building, I think, roughly 10 years, give or take. He's mentioned on the website at the Michener Museum as one of the prominent Bucks County artists. He has stained glass work. His stained glass work is in several churches. There's one in Trenton, there's one in Canaan, Connecticut, I think it is, and Chicago. So his work is all over the place.
it's interesting, I run the daycare back here. Kids are always finding little pieces of colored glass outside or on that outside.
Yes, in that outhouse, he had a little,
Yeah, we're always
stove.
finding little pieces of.
he had an
glass.
oven.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
And for those more recent. And he was very involved in the dump the pump movement in the 80s. He lived in Point Pleasant at the time. So he was a real activist throughout his life.
That includes my wife, who was very active with Dump the Pump.
Okay.
There you go.
And he sold the building, I guess, for $4,000 in 1958. So that's what the value is. Who did he sell it to, Tom?
Well, there may have been an interim owner, but eventually Albert, I forget his last name,
Huber.
owned and ran a restaurant here, Albert's Old Schoolhouse Inn. He was apparently quite a character. There are mentions in newspaper articles from the day, and in his obituary, for instance, that mention that somebody wanted to put ketchup on his famous potatoes here, and he said, "That's it, you're leaving."
Yeah. So he was quite a character and renowned in the town of New Hope. And then he eventually sold it to Pamela Minford for $60,000. And yeah, I'm going to let Carl talk to you about Pamela because you met her and got to know her, right?
Right. So when I retired at 27 to work 7 days a week as an innkeeper for my professional job, I was in touch with all these other people in hospitality, including Pam Minford, who not only had a restaurant, but she had the only wedding venue here. And later on, that became very important in the negotiations to buy this, because people like Howard Mann, people like John Larson, other Jews in town had their affairs there, had weddings, had bar mitzvahs there, and that was an interesting connect. We needed that connection when we were purchasing it. But she was a real entrepreneur. She although she did have her King Tut exhibit up 20 years after they left the US. So every bit of that exhibit was here, broken in this level. This was her cold storage.
Are you saying she's a patron of the arts? in New
Uh,
York or something?
Well, that too, but she just needed cold storage because she had 3 wedding venues, a restaurant. 60 broken air conditioners were here, window units, odds and ends of china, of silverware. She also had 2 tractor trailers parked at the edge where we're parking now. And she rented the downstairs to 1 or 2 tenants who wound up to be 24 tenants when we were there. So it was a little different, and when she put it up for sale, if I use the term, people, there's some realtors in the room, didn't show well. So the back 4 rows here was where the furnace stood, not in a room, but by itself. And when you looked up, so Pam was an extremely generous person, no doubt, and a real entrepreneur. She didn't put a lot of money in infrastructure though. So when you looked up, you saw the insulation, pink, 40 years old, falling on you. That's in part why I started thinking about wearing some headgear when I came in besides a yarmulke. So that's what it looked like, and I don't want to go any further. I know it's coming down the line.
It's coming, but the bottom line is, she was well known in town. If you go online and you look, Facebook postings, people have all sorts of stories about Pamela, and evidently she was a philanthropist too. So she raised money and gave money to a lot of causes. And I think Carl, you made the point too that she was very generous with her time and support basically in making sure that the sale went through well and everything, correct?
Yeah. Do you want to talk about that now?
Yeah, we'll go. Yeah, here we're getting to that.
Okay.
Actually. Before we do that, Abraham, why don't you just tell us a little bit about, how KHN even started as a congregation and this mobile Ark on Wheels that existed
Okay,
for a
so
little while.
you can all see the picture. I'm going to use my notes because I didn't need to, but I want to call this is our days of wandering in the desert looking for a building to appear. It was our new shul had gelled, but without regular place to meet for services. We met at the Hibernia lobby a few times, and then we were able to arrange to meet at the Friends Meeting House in Salisbury, occupying the building on Saturdays and leaving the building ready for use by the Friends on Sundays. And we spent about 2 years there. I remember, twice that we had our high holidays there, and it was really a very cozy, sitting on opposite sides and rearranging, and it was, it was really quite an intimate and very positive space, but it wasn't ours. Now we had accepted.
And it wasn't ours, that we had no storage there, so everything came and went.
Yeah.
And Rabbi Sandy would take a Torah from the rabbinical college, strap it in her passenger seat and put a seatbelt around it, and drive it 18 miles here, and then had to drive it back for Monday morning.
Well, that answers another thing, because I didn't remember that part, but I knew that somehow we had managed to get our hands on a Torah. But
What
we
years are
knew
we talking about here, those early years?
97. 94,
94.
95, sorry.
Yeah, 94 is when-
94.
but we needed an arc. But we needed an arc on Saturdays and the arc needed to disappear for Sundays. One that could be wheeled to an inconspicuous place at a meeting house. The photo here shows that arc with the participants. Here we have Rabbi Sandy, who approved the design. You could see, her flowing red hair, and I remember once we had our Hanukkah a Purim, and she came as a biker chick, but actually she did ride a motorcycle. And then she approved the design. I had done some sketches, and then we had Tom Galbraith, who was a local character. That his wife is still alive, still living in the same building where they lived in New Hope near the train station, and he gave us a good price. So we're always interested in that. And then there was Lisa Stevens, who always participated, and she actually wove the curtain.
And the one that's in there as well.
I'm sorry.
The
Here,
curtain that's in
Yeah.
there.
Yes.
It's not the same one, but you wrote that and we got that.
is it the same one? I don't know.
No,
Yeah,
no,
I mean,
it's the same one. I'm just
it's
saying
different.
also.
Yeah. So the arc was designed to be a hand truck, which really means it had two wheels on the back and two very firm gripping handles on the back, so that you could put your foot next to it and tilt it back and wheel it in any direction that you want, like you would an industrial hand truck.
One other question, how did you obtain the Torah itself? Is there a story
No,
there?
no, the Torah went back to,
But later we will. It's the
There's a
quilt.
Torah
I think
story that
there's
we're
a
gonna.
Torah story. Yeah.
We're getting there.
so we had our device, for storing this ark for our wandering Jews.
Abraham, is that Peter next to Rabbi Sandy?
Oh, that's Abraham. Oh, that's you, Abraham?
Yeah.
I was not handsome dude.
See,
Yes.
I did not.
You've gotten better looking.
You're right. The ark ended up being used in the new building for a while because this is what we had, and we're still in the process of this was not what we see on the floor. It was very irregular, and even though we had been doing renovations, this particular floor that's flatter and finished was a later addition. But it was used until that time when we used one of our then members, Jeffrey Green, to design and build not only the ark, but all of the furniture to accompany that design. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. Okay, so schoolhouse becomes a shul. So yeah, okay, Carl, now you can kind of just fill in a few of the blanks, like how did you find this place even? How did you? Yeah.
So there was a very small group, and I think that was one of our successes. And we kept the planning group small. We had what we call the tribal council of 4 or 5 people. Abraham and I, some of the original people, Myrna and Marvin Katz, Michael Manuel from England, Susan Glasser from Dublin, not Pennsylvania, Merle Citron and Murray Gottfried, Abraham with Sharon helping, myself and my wife is big support, Nadine. And we were able to move quickly. We had decided, and Mark Baum-Baker was also on the planning committee, and he's a finance guy. So we had a combination of corporate people, independent people, on hospitality entrepreneurs. And we were looking around for a permanent site. And as you know, now go back to 94, no housing developments yet, no Riverwoods, no, what's the other place? Village 2 was there, but not the expanded Village 2.
Yeah.
So that's Riverwoods, right? No, that's Riverwoods in North Point. Thank you. So there were no condo buildings that we could go to, no community centers. The borough was meeting at what was Russo's Pizza, the old Eagle Firehouse. That's now, by the way, a very vanilla cafe, a Pakistani European style coffee house now and restaurant. So they didn't have room upstairs either. So we were looking around. We said we have to find a place. We never thought we would attract people beyond Lambertville and New Hope. Now we have members in Quakertown and Flemington and Princeton and Yardley even. So we were looking fairly close, and Susan Glasser had come to Bucks County from New York via Dublin, and was with the new Playhouse management when Ralph Miller stepped away for like 3 years. A guy named Lesser and some other folks were part of that group. And she lived in Village too, and she said, a sign went up for sale, the old schoolhouse. I said, what old schoolhouse? Because you don't see us from the road. So that's how we wound up here. We found out that Pam Minford owned it. And through my connections, through hospitality and through being around, so I'm talking about Barry Ziff. These are some names of people who have passed. Now they'd be in their upper 90s. Howard Mann, an art dealer.
I mentioned Dan Shapiro.
Dan Shapiro, not yet though,
Okay.
not yet. But some of these old timers who knew Pam, and I knew Paula Citra because his partner, whose name I didn't remember, Warren Troust, and he was an administrator at Bucks County Community College, and he got me one of my first adjunct teaching jobs. So we knew a certain network of people, and we knew that Pam took a drink at 4 o'clock every Friday.
Where?
At the Towpath House restaurant, which Paul owned. So that's where we all had a drink with her one day. And we just said, Pam, it was listed for over $900,000. It's 12 acres, or 11 and a half acres, and the built 5,000 plus square foot building. So I said, Pam, this is what we're interested in. Oh, also, her life partner of 35 years was Jewish, Ellen Wolford. And her brother and her other brother all worked for Pam in property management and things. So we said, this is what we're interested in doing. This, and if you're okay with us doing that, we'd like to proceed to buy, because we were not interested in some protracted thing, and she didn't want to have a synagogue here, right? But, okay, Carl, sounds good. It was a school. Maybe it's going to be a school again. So on a handshake, she let us see the building and gave us a bunch of keys. So the keys, I've said there were about 24 people living downstairs. Well, everyone had a padlock. The key didn't open anything. The key opened her level, and there was no staircase. If you know, to get down to the lower level, there's a staircase. That was cut off and covered. So we uncovered it, and we dropped down onto someone's kitchen counter. And as I said, it didn't show well. So the diesel Mercedes that the realtor owned, followed by the Mercedes of the potential people, would come up here. They couldn't get in.
Yes.
And all they saw was the cold storage here. And 24 people kind of running away, and all their clothes hanging outside. No washer dryers here. So we came back. We had a couple of attorneys on our little planning committee too, including Larry Wohl and Weinstein,
Yeah.
Jeff Weinstein.
Definitely.
And we developed a nice little 32-page contract. She handed it back to me and she said, Carl, I've sold cars for more money than this. Bring me 1 page. Just bring me a 1-page contract. You want to do your inspections, do anything you want, but I don't have time for this. And by the way, we also knew that she had sold several properties in town. She was a major landlord in town too. And so we figured out that she would have a tax problem with capital gains. So we offered her to sell to a nonprofit. It's called the bargain sale. So it's appraised at X and you sell it at Y, and the difference you could write off as a donation to the nonprofit. So for about $320,000, we purchased the property.
Well done.
And there were some people whose she held it until on a handshake. And this comes back to the personal connections that we had. Because other people already put in contracts in the 600s and 700s. Because this would make a nice single-family home on 12 acres, right? So, we thank Pam for that. By the way, she had a gold convertible Rolls Royce that she would take her brides in. She was always busy. She may be an hour late, but when you had her attention, you had her attention. And that's what we loved about Pam. And that's why we saw her at 4 o'clock at the bar. We proceeded to go ahead. Somebody asked a question, and I won't answer it now, but why it all happened when it did. And a lot of forces came together. The term beshert, everybody knows beshert, meant to be maybe. So I'll stop talking now.
No, and the other thing you told me also is that because it had been a schoolhouse prior to this, we didn't need any special permits for use of the property because we
Yeah, I
were sort
thought
of
now you want to talk.
sort
about
of
that.
using it as a
So,
school
like
anyway.
I said, a lot of things came together.
Right.
So the president of Borough Council, a nice guy named Miller, pulled me aside and told me he was a member of the tribe. And Ann Liebgold was the chairman of the planning commission. Her father was one of the founders of the Playhouse and was married to Mr. Liebgold. I'm gonna forget his first name at the minute, who had a very thick German accent. His brother, his twin brother, I think, was the leading male Yiddish actor in New York City. And they had the hardware store in town. So she said, we went to the borough and the borough said, we're happy with that use. And then at the planning commission said, well, it was a school. Now there was 40 years in between, right? So the existing non-conforming use kind of expired after 365 days. But Ann said, no, that's okay. You're gonna make it a school, right? I said, yes. Yes. So we didn't have to go through zoning. We later did, but not then. And a lot of things came together.
Had you guys started a school already outside of here?
Yes, so we met briefly at the Hibernia in their community room. That's a senior housing. We outgrew that by the second time we met. Then we went to the library in Lambertville for our school. Because we met in May and June of '94 and July. In August, we decided we were gonna have high holidays in September. Not a lot of time. We put together a notebook of mimeograph stuff. That was our sitter. And we needed a place to meet. And so we kind of were in I think it was in a couple of people's houses for a session or two, and then we were at the public school library in Lambertville. So we just said, yes, let's just go do it. So not a lot of thought, no carousel of process here. We just did it.
Excellent. And my last question on that page was there much publicity? And the answer to that is yes, right? It looks like it got some.
Right. So the only
really
way
nice
we could communicate with people was our weekly newspaper. That was the New Hope Gazette, and Bridget, who and her son are still involved with that. They were very helpful. They printed anything we gave them. And that's how we communicated with people. We had someone coming from the West Coast that were moving here, and they subscribed to the paper and they were following us before they ever got here through the newspaper articles. So this is pre-internet, pre-email, and fax machines.
Right. Yeah, and I'm showing them some photos right now, Carl. Like the bottom right is Pamela Minford, I think, signing over the deed. Bottom left, I think, were some of the school children who were moving to the new school at that point. Oh, that's an old one, right? That's it. Yeah.
That's the old school, and
Right.
yes, there's a picture of some of the people who came here in their 70s who were like
Yeah.
Mayor McGill.
That's bottom right. I've got that.
Okay.
Right. The mayor on the left.
And if you see, they're holding their hard hats.
Okay. Right. Right. So they brought back,
So anything we
adults
did-
who
anything
had
we did,
gone
we
to the
tried
school.
Take a picture of and print it.
Yeah, so who came up with the name?
Interesting, that little group, and Lisa and I, And it was someone Lisa knew in Princeton at the university who did the graphics, the first graphics, which is the bridge, the two communities, the Jewish Star, and we always knew we were going to be small, little, and we liked the word shul. You know, it was kind of an old school, not temple, not synagogue, but shul, little shul by the river. And Rabbi said, well, that would be Kehilat HaNahar, river community. So she gave us the Hebrew name,
What does that mean?
river community. Kehilah is community. So we said, well, how would we spell that with what's capital? And she said, any way you want to do it. So there you go. So I spell it capital K and then capital N.
Yeah.
A capital H and then a small N.
That's
So
how
it
I-
depends how you want to do it. And that's how we came up with the name, because again, we didn't think we were going beyond Lambertville and New Hope basic area, and we always knew we were going to be small.
And I can add to that there was a time later on when we were bulging, and for a brief while, there were sketches drawn up of enlarging the place. But it didn't really happen, fortunately, because we would have been overextended.
Which is a classic move by some.
Do you remember
Houses
the
of-
maximum number of families that was causing the bulge?
Oh, we were
How
close
large
to
did-
155 families, and we had to go to 2 sessions in our Hebrew school because we had 125 or so children.
So how many families?
About 155 families.
155.
Well, units. There was a family with 6 children, with 4 children,
yeah.
and some individuals, but yeah, about 155.
That was the
We're around
last-
130 now.
Right.
How many original families, like how many people, so there were the founders, right, but then how many?
Well, that first, so the first
And were there about 30 founders, or like, what was the?
the first service that we had in May, we had one a month, May, June, July, August. At Hibernia was about 50 people that came. Not everybody came back. You know, my brother was in town, he was there, that kind of stuff. And then the second time was a little larger, that was at Myrna and Marvin's house in Carversville. And we just grew from there. And I missed our first I think a lot of people may know this, sorry if I'm gonna bore you, but so we had our service at the meeting house. And I had met the Kerr family, Kerr, who's still here and very involved in New Hope Arts. And they were refugees from Germany who wanted to forget about their Jewish heritage. But they were friendly, and her son was the president of the Solbury Meeting House. So that's who we met with, talking about all things coming together and aligning. And they were very open to us renting from them, so that also was another connection.
Did you have the rabbi from the start, or did you start? with
So,
the rabbi?
so Deanie and I were part of the community Seders in New Hope. That was not founded by us, it was here, Pomerantz, who owned Mothers, co-owner of that, and I'm gonna forget who else, the artist,
Yes, Roseman.
Sue Roseman.
Yes, and there was always a struggle because people they were trying to do a ceremony of some sort. People just wanted to eat.
So when Deanie and I kind of took that up as they were fading away or were tired of doing it, after 10 or 15 years, we did it and we opened up the Wedgwood Inn on to some Jewish people for Passover, but also for Hanukkah. And we did lightings there. And with Mayor McGill, we did community lightings downtown, actually. So one day, 2 blonde women walked in like you with 5 children. It was a cantor and Sandy Parian. She was not Rabbi Sandy. And she was teaching at a Sunday school. And her mother was also grew up in Paramus, North Jersey. I grew up in Passaic. Conservative background, conservative shul background. And so we had a lot in common. And she would come. And 5 years later, she just randomly called me up and said, well, what do you think it's time to start a shul? And that's how it started. And then that summer, she started rabbinical school. Because somebody was encouraging her at age 40 that it wasn't too late to go back to school.
Is it time for you to mention about the Zingers? They were interested in starting a shul?
Yeah, so that's one of the questions that my daughter asked about. Why did we succeed when others didn't? So this memorial board, this is where people who have bought a plaque for someone who memorialized their passing. And it was Zinger was a manager of a mill in town who came here in the 1940s
Out of Brooklyn.
out of Brooklyn to manage a mill. And he tried to get Abe Finkel and some other people in New Hope and Lambertville to start a shul. They all had a place to go. They had family synagogues in Trenton or Levittown, and it just didn't work. But I think we had a critical mass, and I'll get to that later. But yes, so but it took on new significance to me. I'll speak for myself to learn that it was the first. We were forming the first permanent Jewish presence in this area, and that to me meant a lot.
Was this before TJ and Jeremy and all, like who?
No,
No,
Jeremy
they
was there, and the place in was 10 years old in Doylestown. But everyone went to Princeton or Flemington, but there was nothing convenient. That was one of the things that Rabbi Sandy talked about, convenience, to make it easy for people to come.
Okay, so this is interesting too. When I talked to Carl the first time, he talked to me about how once they cleaned out the building and got it to a point of safety, they made sure to try to retain as many architectural elements of the original schoolhouse as possible. So why don't you talk about some of the things that we're looking at right here that
Sure.
kind of came with the building?
So just to my right was a fireplace that was all original, the bookcases on either side. The Philadelphia fencing is a slang word for that kind of tongue and groove. And you notice it's around the entire building,
It's like I called it wainscoting,
like
right?
wainscoting.
Yeah.
Wainscoting. The tin walls are original, they were covered up, there were 3,000 holes in here. And because you had to hold up the insulation somehow, and it was little wires with little eye hooks that would hold everything up
Wow.
barely, because it was 40 years old by the time we're looking at it. And those cabinets were original to the building too.
Right.
The two bathrooms we have to my far left were cloakrooms. So we literally just replumbed them, and we made the classrooms downstairs. Most of the original walls, you could see the original stone in some of the classrooms too.
But the roll-up doors also came with it.
Oh my God, yes. So if you notice, so the one accident that almost happened during renovation, there are lead weights on ropes holding up these doors, and they would clang. And there was an electrician in the basement, education, putting in an outlet. This was plugged into an outlet on the other side. So there's a hollow air space there for these weights to go up and down. And a weight fell from here and dropped, and it would have, you don't want to think about what would have happened. Because it was like a 10-pound weight dropping 30 feet. So there was a lot of speed to it.
I'd say they're more like 80 pounds.
Thank you. All right. Didn't want to exaggerate. And it was our Paul Raywood did the general contracting for us here and actually rebuilt the bell tower for us as a gift. And he was the one who suggested we put those little slots there in case anything. We put chains up instead of the 150-year-old ropes that were in there. But those little toggles go on each side to make sure that door doesn't go
I
anywhere.
want to add
This door goes up too.
that this floor actually bounced. You could walk on it and it would move up and down. And that needed a steel beam was installed from front to back, and there was a very technical job. I remember, that was fabricated and brought in, and footings put in there, and a whole bunch of people lifting it in place.
Yeah, we have a picture actually in the library, I think, of that. The 6 guys holding it up. That was
So
Finkel's.
you can jump all you want.
We got all
down,
that
back up,
steel
out.
at cost from Finkel. So in part, Finkel's did not charge any markup on materials, so they gave us a discount, and all of our contractors would just say it goes on the Little Shul account. So they weren't marking it up. And they also donated 17 windows that we had to replace all the windows. If you look at the Van Sant house right now in town at the corner of River Road and Mechanic Street, all those windows are getting replaced. That building is one of the oldest in town, 1740s. There's a marker up there. I forget the age.
I say 1744 or something like that.
Yeah, yeah,
something.
right out
I'm
the
saying
same
that
bar.
is the oldest.
Yes, it claims to be, and somewhere in that roof rafter is a British cannonball.
Cannon shot. Yeah.
Cannon shot. When they couldn't cross, they, in anger, they shot one across.
Yeah, exactly. So
We tried to maintain whatever we could. So this floor, Lisa asked, was like a 1x6 and a 1x4. If we were told that all the trees that were cleared here were made to build this building. So there's huge in the attic, you could see the cross beams and things, hand carved.
Hmm.
And there were holes, there were knot holes that had dried out, right? And they had no way to cure the lumber. They put raw lumber down. So it shrunk. And I'd say the building settled, that would be a fair way to say. So at one point, that was a Paul Raywood, they leveled it somehow and they laid down this walnut plank.
and there was no bell in the belfry, right? So somebody
Yeah, one of our early
found-
members, Bob Cohen, found the 1838 brass bell and we reinstalled it in our bell tower. So we could hear it from where we live in the wind.
And we actually had a rope at one point coming down. You could see there's a little port in the other room.
The outside is falling in.
But the port is there, but the rope is not there.
The rope is coiled up in the attic. We sealed it up because the kids were hanging on it too much. We had water coming running down the rope through this bad storm. So we would always have a puddle on the floor.
There was some wind-driven rain that we needed.
Ring the bell manually now.
Not now, but it's curled up there. If you want to climb up there, we could work it out.
The basement, a full basement, or of the whole.
That's classroom. That's classroom space. Yes,
Right.
all here, so the windows line up on
Okay.
either side, and there's even a little room underneath the front.
Right, and so did it have to be reinforced from below?
Oh, there's a lot of steel,
A
yeah.
lot,
Yeah.
right?
And the bell that had been here when this was a public school was transferred to the new high school at the time of the transfer of the classes. I don't think the bell is there anymore. I think it has disappeared.
It disappeared. We were told it was in the woodworking room. They don't know where it happened. Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, it's a shame that they lost it.
In walls and the ceiling are those original?
Mhm.
They're all-
Yeah, I don't think we could tell from the black and white photo that we have from the people sitting there in 1925 or whatever it is. But yeah, it was here. So it was
Paul had to restore them. Paul restored them. They were in bad shape.
yeah, so that was actually John Bray, the painter. And he was a paint restoration specialist. And fill them, prime it so that all the rust wouldn't show, and then a finish coat. And they were on their back painting.
And there were
all
some
this.
replacements also. I remember when they took a mold and formed
Yeah.
plastic,
Plaster.
substitutes for those places that were too damaged.
Are the walls tin tiles as well as the ceiling?
Mhm. And interesting, if you look at the windows, how the top piece of molding extends about an inch on either side.
Yeah, and going on a slight angle.
It's on a slight, and the vertical pieces are at a slight angle. To me, it's kind of Asian looking,
Mhm.
and I don't know what to call that.
I think it's like mid-century modern, mission style. That's what I was thinking. Yeah, mission. Yeah. But I'm going to change topics a little bit just because someone asked about the Torah and then you mentioned about the memorial plaque. So what's the story behind?
Okay, I
you
think
know,
you have a picture of the
Well,
quilt.
Well, I don't think I do have a
So
Torah
on the other
picture.
side of this wall are two quilts.
Oh, the quilts I have. Yeah.
So-
Okay. Yeah.
So a member was very, very concerned that we didn't have a Sefer Torah, a kosher Torah. So we were able to purchase one with a donation, and it was stitched together from 3 Torahs that survived the Holocaust. They all had burn marks on them, but we were able to piece together and a kosher scribe do that. And to raise the money to finish it, we sold squares on a quilt because 3 of our members were quilters, including Liza Pryor. If anybody know Liza? If you Google her name, she's got these huge cocktail table books about quilting. Anyway, that's on the other side. So we memorialized a few things and a few dates on that side. So like the first Olive class did it for their teacher, and we wrote something about the day we purchased it, the day we sanctified it as a synagogue. Some of our founding tribal council members are up there too, so it's a nice piece of history.
When was that done?
That was done, I would say, we were here a while, so 99-ish.
Somebody online asked, how long did it take the 24 families to get out from the base?
Get out from where?
How did you,
Oh,
how did you inject
they-
it?
Oh, they were not here when we purchased it. They were gone. They were gone, so we had nothing to do with that. It was part of the contract was it would be we tried to say room clean, but she said no. As is, except downstairs. I was gonna take care of that. So it was nothing legal about what was downstairs.
How long did the restoration take until you could actually use the building?
I thought it was ready that September of '98, but some of the mothers and fathers of the Shul school students didn't think we were ready. So we wound up taking another half year at the high school, the New Hope Salisbury High School. We rented classes. And they thought there was just too many hard hat issues around here to have, because we tried to do the school first. So it was done, but we weren't done up here.
And
So
I caught a question came in from one of the Zoom members, like what happened to the original art on the windows? I think.
On wheels.
On wheels. Okay.
oh, we have it. It's either in the garage or in the classroom.
The garage.
It's in the garage.
Currently, Steph Brightsman has an interest in it, and we're gonna move it to her possession hopefully soon.
And who was that?
Steph Brightsman, our former intern, who's now a rabbi down at the shore. She has a need for mobile art. So we're gonna try to rehome.
So by the way, that whole mobile art thing came to me because I have family in, is it Whitehorse, New Jersey, White Lake, somewhere around Morristown. And the Chabad would come in and they had a smaller ark that would sit on a table. And so that whole idea of a mobile ark, I took that photo. I'm very proud of that photo. Somehow we still have it before digital photos.
Okay. So Abraham. Or no, okay, this was still Carl, and you talked about the hard hat Seder, but was there anything else you wanted to add to that?
Oh, so you know, we had this pre-finished tour of all these seniors who were here, including the nephew of Joseph Pickett, or grandnephew who did the famous painting. Mayor McGill, Jake Fell, longtime borough manager and street department chair. And we were having our first Seder up here. We were going to firehouses and to people's restaurants on a Monday because they were closed. So we started calling it the later Seder because if it was on a Friday or Saturday, they didn't want to give up their restaurant for us, but we could come on a Monday or a Tuesday. So it didn't always conform. So we said, well, we have a building, we're gonna do it here. So we had a string of construction lights, you know what they look like, yellow with little light bulbs. And I have a great picture of Wendy and John Blevins and their 4 children under those lights. And I think Dustin, whose van is parked outside there, is about 3 at the time. And we just kept these around. So that's a picture of Deanie and I, and on my shoulders is our daughter Jessica, and that's my sister and brother-in-law, and their two girls as before they walked in for the Seder. So that was
Sharon and I remember looking out of our front window and seeing you wheel Jessica by.
yeah, we had an old blue carriage.
Okay, we're going to switch subjects again. So KHN as an object of art. So this building has been the subject of many interesting, pieces of paintings and arts, and one of them especially. So this is Manchester Valley by Joseph Pickett. So does anybody in the audience, want to take a stab at why this painting is called Manchester Valley? Do you know, Tom?
I do not know.
Okay.
Well, actually,
I
I've
could tell
heard,
this.
I don't remember where that
Right.
there were mill buildings there that were owned by a British
Correct. Correct. From Manchester.
from Manchester.
Yes. So yeah. So if you look at the painting, this is our synagogue, which was a schoolhouse on the hill. In front of it is the railroad track and the mills that sit right actually where Carl lives today on Old Mill Road. And
What's called Twin Mill Road.
it was called Twin Mill Road at the time. And the mills are there strategically because they're along the Aquatong Springs River, which kind of cuts through town and sends 3 million gallons a day of water from up in the hills, they're just south of here, out to the Delaware River. The mills, to Abraham's point, were owned by a group from Manchester, England. They were called Lepanto Mills. And the mills, so the workers who came to town were from Manchester. They sent a lot of groups over. So that area of town became known as Manchester Valley because a lot of workers who lived there. And Joseph Pickett was, lived on Mechanic Street in a house that's actually being renovated right now, right next to the canal. And he was very prolific from age 60 on, created some wonderful impressionistic art. One of them is in the Whitney Museum. This one of our schoolhouse called Manchester Valley sits in the museum, Museum of Modern Art, right?
Metropolitan?
MoMA.
No, I think it's MoMA. I think it's Museum
Mom.
of Modern Art.
Museum of Modern Art, yeah, okay, right. And it's worth millions of dollars. But as the story goes, is Pickett's wife was upset that while he was sitting in the back studio painting for like the later part of their years, she had to run the hardware store up front. So she destroyed much of his art, except for 4 pieces that are still around today. So of those, one's in the Whitney and one is in Manchester Valley.
So I just heard a quick,
and
little
you've got-
different, just a little
yeah.
different, that
Yeah.
he was a primitive artist. He was a generalist. He had a general store. And when he passed, she just threw out everything because they were primitive and they were large. The original is 3.5 by 5.5 feet. So with all these colonial era homes with 6 ceilings, that's a lot of paint. And he called it that, hoping that the Manchester Mills would buy the print. So when they passed on it, David Newhart's has it also on his building, in the mural painted on his building. When they moved in 1933, well, then he shopped it to the school because that's the other prominent building in the image. And the building said, the principal said, "I have no money. It's a Great Depression. What are you talking about?" So it was left here when they moved to 1933 to Bridge Street. And the janitors, so the story goes, sold the painting for $20 to buy shrubs for the new build. Foundation plantings. Fast forward 30 years, a New Hope artist has a gallery exhibit in Manhattan. Audrey Rockefeller in the middle 50s is looking for Americana for the bicentennial. She buys it for 30 some odd thousand, and she in turn donates it to MoMA for a charitable gift in 1993 for $2.9 million charitable donation. So this is a fellow who never sold a painting in his life. And the only 2 or 3 or 4 that survived his death were given to people or left somewhere. So it's an amazing story.
And if you look carefully at not only is this school building in there, the 4 buildings, the the ones on the far side of the railroad track, just under the school, those buildings are still there. You can see them from across the river and
And on Mechanic
Charles'
Street.
property.
Yeah, as you make a left out the driveway, you'll see them.
Yeah.
The first building actually has 4 spiral staircases in it. There's not one, because it's such a vertical building, just dug into the hill, right past our little parking lot at the base. So it's a tough house, another house to sell, tough house.
And
I'm assuming those 2 flanking things are the outhouses.
Yes,
When I look up.
those are the 2
I just
outhouses.
wanna make sure.
2 doors in,
Yeah.
they were not orthodox. But boys and the boys' outhouse on the right and the girls outhouse on the left, they had to enter through different doors. And we were told that we were one of the first segregated schools. At least in Pennsylvania, because we were too small to have
You mean
Black-
integrated?
integrated. Thank you.
Gotcha.
And we also had the first integrated hotels because Pam Minford put people up to the Playhouse when they were doing. I'm trying to think of some songs, but Arthur Godfrey used to play the piano at her place. But when black actors came down, Othello, other performances, or there was an African-American driver for the actors, they had to stay somewhere, and we were too small to have segregated housing. So unfortunately, the term used for that side of us towards the Wawa was Darky Town. And there was a family that had 120 acres. And that's where we met Stephanie briefly, who is, Stephanie from the borough, who rents from one of those houses, and there's a black cemetery up there.
Well, the cemetery is actually Black Civil War veterans.
Where's
I
that?
was told there's some family.
Well, no, I mean,
I think the
that's
name
what
is
that was when I was told by.
Patterson is the
property,
name. Patterson.
we moved to buy us a bunch of years.
Yeah, there's actually because when there was another person, they just built another house. So it's in the back of 3 houses. Yeah.
And there's a print in the lobby of Manchester Valley, and there's a really interesting story that Abraham is going to tell us
Okay.
about how that print
Some
ended up.
color to this, and
Yeah.
have that print up. And I married my lovely wife 32 years ago by none other than Mayor Bagel in our own living room. We moved into our home on Bridge Street, right next to the library, and 2 doors down from Carl and Deanie's Wedgwood Inn. And it was Carl and Sharon, knew each other because Sharon had exhibited some ceramics, I believe, at the inn.
Carl and Bees.
So we had a fireplace. It was a lovely home. And I wanted to have a picture above it. I was really very busy in my work life. I was constantly, going and doing and wasn't paying a lot of attention to the neighborhood or that sort of thing. But somehow I'm not exactly sure, when but I acquired a print. That print from Brown Brothers in Buckingham. It's a lovely primitive print, and as you know, Manchester Valley, and we hung it over our fireplace, and I had no idea what it depicted. None.
Wow.
So all of a sudden, Carl shows up to our home and he says, "Hey guys, we're starting a shul." And what does my ex-Catholic wife say? "Yay, great, let's do it." It kind of reminds me of my own dear Sharon's enthusiasm on Yom Kippur after the rabbis taught. Wonderful enthusiasm. Now, a little bit of background about me. I mean, I have this peculiar history. I had long since turned in my membership to the Jewish people. Yeah, you're not going to be happy to hear that, but I did. I was like done with it, you know. I was raised in a very strict Orthodox Jewish shtetl-like bubble, but I also knew that there was another world waiting for me outside, and I couldn't wait to join that outside bubble. So indeed, I did escape to that new world as soon as I was able, and I just lived my life. And it wasn't until some 45 years have passed with me not self-identifying as a Jew, I guess, when Carl stepped in and made this surprise appearance. Of course, others always still labeled me as Jew. So it seemed an unexpected and kind of a fateful call to hesitatingly examine what I left behind. And I had a sudden newfound curiosity, because all that I remember is the strictness of the pain inflicted of doing it right and this and that, and I couldn't relate that to the rest of the world as I could see it. I mean, I'm the only one in the family who really strayed in a very serious way. I mean, to the point of where I eventually got excommunicated by my own family, and that wasn't fun. So here I am, Reconstructionist. What's that? I never heard of it. I only knew fire and brimstone. So all of a sudden I realized there's some nice people here. No one told me to leave. And I became a founder. That's why I called myself an accidental founder, a HaMahar no less. I was here to do and to learn. Some 2 years later, our shul community found, as we've learned about this perspective building, and Carl described very well, all of the interesting steps that I actually didn't know about myself, because my attention was focused elsewhere. But at some point, I realized that building, once I saw it, something clicked. I realized that in wintertime, if I look out of the back of my house, look across the spring and see the mill buildings, if I look up, I could see this building, I could see this bell tower. And it was stunning.
The sheriffs, right?
Well, that's my next point. It was eerie to me, and I also use that term thinking of this concept of bashir, Yiddish for the intended one. Usually, it applies to the person who becomes your spouse. So it was like intended that somehow this would come together. Who knows? We spoke Yiddish at home. I didn't really know Hebrew. I mean, my training is you daven and you learn the alphabet. I could read Hebrew. I didn't know a word I was saying. And here, all of a sudden, there's this book that has transliteration, and it has English. Only then could I begin to understand the poetry and the ideas that are contained. So, don't blame me for turning away from something that seemed so unintelligible. So I found meaning and value. So the next time you're in the lobby, you can see it right now. That's the print that I bought. That's the print that I just made this major discovery. That's the print that I had reframed it and put it in the lobby so we could all enjoy and understand about its history. So this then becomes our place, a Jewish house of prayer and a Jewish house for learning.
And how long did that sit over your fireplace before you realized that it was the same building right outside your window?
I've been struggling with that. I've been trying to remember exactly when.
Right.
I didn't hit it.
When you did the dishes.
Yes, that's right.
Well, I think,
And
Sharon, I think you bought the house. I knew the people who lived there before. They moved
Yeah.
back to Montclair, so that was in the middle '90s.
No, they moved from
Early
West Coast.
90s?
Yes, yes. In fact, we bought another. Yeah, they went and bought in Washington, I think, or no, I don't know, off of Washington, a deconsecrated church to make that their home. We stayed in touch with them for a while, and we kept referring to it as their house. And no, it's your house.
And there's still a debate going on whether Joseph Pickett, when he painted this painting, was sitting in Abraham's backyard or in Carl's backyard. But
We all say the prophets.
He was it's definitely in the vicinity, right? Yeah, but it's pretty close, the angle. And one more thing, there's a beautiful article that was written in 2008 by Roy Ziegler. So many of you know Roy Ziegler. He might be on this call. See, Jerry said he's been listening via Zoom the whole time. And Roy, if you want to say hello, you can. But he wrote a beautiful article about the Pickett painting. If there's anything you have to add to what we just talked about, that would be great. I don't know if we can hear the audience.
He's not.
Oh, okay. But he did join very well. But he basically kind of captured the combination here of how the schoolhouse that is now the synagogue was captured in that famous painting. And then there are a couple of other paintings where this building is the centerpiece. So this is called Evening Local New Hope. It's by Fern Isabel Kopej. I don't know if either of you know much more about this.
Well, she's part of the Impressionist painters from the Philadelphia School. And that hangs in the conference room at the school.
Oh, okay.
They own that.
Right.
Yeah, she did very, all very.
Right.
And then we're not sure. We think it's Gene Holter, but who owns this painting? Did you
I
know?
thought Frank Cosner Sr. owned it, who just passed away. So
Okay.
if you know Frank and some of his, Michelle Cosner is married into the family.
Right.
Is this whole, show gonna be online or on your archive site or whatever? So with the news
Well,
article?
Jerry has been recording what we're doing here, but yeah, why don't you tell them?
I mean, the article includes some of the photos that Avery just showed you, but not all of them.
Read them.
Well, it's gonna be on our website
Will
too.
they also be?
All Bagel U is.
So Jerry, we're gonna put some of that on the KHN website, right? Yeah, you'll have access to it.
Yeah, I think all the archives of the Bagel U classes are on the website.
One of the gifts of COVID, having Zoom and having recordings and starting our own inventory.
Yeah. And then the last thing, Tom mentioned, the Beyond the Door, which we will let you guys know when that gets published. It'll happen soon. The reason it hasn't been published is because the Historical Society tomorrow is, we've been gearing up to hold our annual fundraising gala, which is going to be at Odette's. So the same people who would be publishing your article are working on that. So after tomorrow, they'll be able to. And if anybody wants to come, there's still tickets available. So, okay. Yeah.
Bottom right hand side, there's that building that like the top is blown
The
up.
ruins.
That room.
So that's not the
We can tell
ruins
you
on
about it.
Sugan, that's Old Mill Road, that's Twin Mill Road. So that's directly opposite my home and the backyard of the Wedgwood. That's now where the Atkinsons live, that's a house, they rebuilt it.
But it-
Jimmy
but it didn't
Hamilton
have a
owned
roof.
both the ruins and
Now it
this,
does.
and he sold that with plans to rebuild it, so that was built around 2005.
And adjacent to that, the brick building that still stands, it's a multifamily
Yes, it's
residence
condo,
just
right.
off of Ferry Street where Old Mill starts.
Mhm.
The-
And they're skating on Old Mill Road, which was when the Swedes owned this area, that was the way into town. English built Old York Road, which is 611 and then down to in front the West Bridge Street, West Ferry Street to the landing. But still a one-lane street. Happily, I'm very happy about
But,
that.
you know, what I find interesting is like in all three of these paintings, you can see all the buildings pretty clearly. And now you can't because the trees are so much, you know, now they're all in the woods basically. But I guess back in the day, all these trees were new and small.
Right, and yeah, and when the leaves are down, we have great view. We could see Abraham's backyard, I could see my backyard from here.
And Carl, you mentioned when we visited your property some time ago to do another article for Beyond the Door, that the view from your property, the Wedgwood, all the way down to the river was just open fields. So
Yes, it was one property from the curb to the creek, to the
Mm.
spring.
Uh,
So they could see if-
Clear the land, right, it was a bivouac site for 1,400 men prior to the crossing for 4 weeks. So they cut firewood, et cetera, and it's grown back.
and they could see from a distance if the British were coming across the river or not.
I wanted to talk about the stained glass if we have a chance to.
yeah,
I
so
don't know how our time is.
can't remember if I took those photos out, but yeah, why don't you, yeah. So
Well-
do people have any questions? It's actually it's 1:30, but yeah.
Question, just something I thought I'd share. When we bought the building, a friend of mine was the banker, or one of the bankers.
Mhm.
And he was working with Karen Franzini.
Mhm.
People may not know, Karen Franzini was one of the most powerful and influential people in New Jersey. She ran the state's
Economic Development Authority,
So.
Karen Raphael Frenzy.
Yeah. So. So our
Well, right, we needed her help because the average loan for a house of worship was over $1 million. No one wanted to take our $150,000 mortgage. That was the problem.
The
We needed-
leaders in poor states almost got in your way because they looked at the map and they called Art and they said they're going to need flood insurance. They're too close to the road.
That's why.
Oh,
And
They didn't do elevation.
Art said there was no way in hell that he was going to go to Karen Franzini. They said you have to get flood insurance for the highest point of land in New York. So he went to Philadelphia and met with the underwriters. He told them that if it ever rained so much that it was a threat to the shore, we would all be loading animals into and then drop
Adrian,
Yeah,
Adrian, stop.
stop sharing, okay. Someone had a question from the audience though, Jerry, can you see that?
Yeah, how long did it take to get the 24 tenants? Have it?
Oh, when we had a 6-month settlement from acceptance to, and the landlord did that. The current owner did it. We did not want to have any part of that.
I have a question that goes beyond this building. About Native Americans. What was this land? I mean, we just assume that it was at 99 not today, but is there something, I think we should know.
Yeah. Here's my understanding. So, yeah, the Lenape Indians, actually were here originally. And then the colonists came. My understanding is that they lived in harmony here in New Hope. So it was kind of like a peaceful coexistence. And actually, we first of all, we have Lenape Park right in town, which is kind of like a nod to the Native Americans that were here. And there was um, the the chief of the Lenape Indians in this area traded names with General Logan, who the Logan Inn is named after. So they called him Chief Logan, and they called General Logan Chief. I forgot his last name exactly, the name of the chief. It was a bit long Indian name. And if you go to the Parry Mansion in town, which is the headquarters for the Historical Society, you'll see that statue kind of that's built. It's actually a weather vane, a weather vane. And there's a little plaque in front of it that kind of tells the story that I just told. So,
And I recently happened to visit the Trenton State Museum, the New Jersey State Museum in Trenton, and they have a fairly large section about the Native Americans that were here before the European settlers came. And there's evidence now that there was settlements here 10,000 years ago.
Was this area part of Bucks County, part of the walking purchase?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
I thought it was already, I thought the purchase started in Newtown and went forward when they needed more land.
Oh, maybe I'm wrong. I
I
thought,
think it was part of the original land grant to William Penn.
Yeah.
But then his sons did, who were not as nice as he was, extended it by runners. And that was after they were here already. So again, it was under friendly terms that I think the English came, and of course, Aquatone Spring, which means healing waters in the Indian tongue, was named
I didn't know that.
Ingham Springs because Samuel Ingham in 1848 said, "Oh, look what I discovered! I'm going to name it after myself." So when someone wanted to give money, it was Bob Pasikoff and family they were in New York and down here, and he approached me and he said, my father passed away recently. I want to donate a stained glass window. I said, okay, we're gonna have settlement in 30 days, Bob. So how about we use some of that money to purchase the building, and we'll talk about a stained glass window once we've renovated the building. You're a little ahead of it. So he donated these two windows, and the wasn't a controversy, but the discussion was, it's so gorgeous here, the views are so nice here. Do we really want to cover up the windows with stained glass? So my wife came up with the idea of a 1/3 window. So we could have both. And that's how it started. So all these have been donated for various reasons. Ours is the back one over the door. We love the purple hues. We thought that kind of picked up some Amish stuff and Mennonite stuff around here with the Lions of Judah and the Kamsa. And these were all done by Don Hector from Lambertville Stained Glass, we wanted, even though the windows were going to be different, we wanted the same artist to do them, to have some unifying theme. So the several LGBT members donated the one over there with Noah's Ark and the colors of the rainbow. Dear Arthur Spector did that one, which is straight ahead. Yeah, harking back to the Yiddish and kite and the whose name I'm forgetting, the artist. Chagall, thank you. Chagall inspired window. So they're all a little different. Some are in memory of, some are in honor of.
And the two of them.
Right, the newest ones. We have windows above, we created that wall there. And there's there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 big window transoms that are above the double doors. So we could do more if we wanted to.
I think we said we would go to 1:30. It's 1:36. So thank you everybody for joining.